Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 11th episode of season 2 of Coffee with Ashish. And today we've got a very special guest with us, Rohit Rawal, who is a business transformation leader in travel technology and digital leadership. And we are so happy to have you with us today, Rohit. And in fact, before we get into conversation with him, I was reading the other day a report by Skyscanner where they have reported a significant spike in the searches for travel for FY 21-22 based on the COVID vaccine confirmations in UK and US, which is a very positive news for everybody who's associated with the travel sector. And in fact, I was also seeing a lot of developments around the world which are very positive for the travel space because Rohit, for past so many weeks we have been having guests on this show, and we're always crystal ball gazing that what will happen, and now things are finally started to happen. Airlines have become more adapted to waiving off any change fees, making travel more flexible. But at the same time, there have been some reports around some airlines like Qantas talking about making vaccine certifications mandatory when you travel. There is also news of digital health passports being set up by various companies which would be required when you travel. So a lot of interesting things are happening, and I think since you come from a digital travel technology space, it is so very interesting to hear from you that how do you see these developments taking shape and how they will impact the nature of travel and travelers. And just to give a brief introduction about Rohit, Rohit has spent most part of his professional career focusing on the online travel space with India as the key geography, and his work with organizations like Holiday IQ, where he focused on building India's largest travel community, leveraging content which included user generated content and text. With lastminute.com, he has managed a senior P&L role, and he was also responsible for launching Meta and OTA products in India, focused on both flights and hotels. Rohit also has a wide array of experience with working with tourism boards and travel brands, conceptualizing marketing campaigns, both which are built on branded content and unbranded content. Rohit also brings with him a deep understanding of consumers' travel purchase patterns and funnel management, from the discovery, inspiration phase to actual post-transaction support and feedback. So he's seen the end-to-end journey of a typical OTA, and he has managed P&L of large travel technology organizations. So no better person than Rohit to guide us on how he sees both the travel companies as well as the end consumers behaving in this new world order. So, with this, a very warm welcome to you, Rohit, on our show. And
Thank
I'm going to request Ashish to further the conversation while I sit back and enjoy my coffee.
Thanks, Kat.
Well, welcome, Rohit, and enjoy your coffee, and we'll have a chat, of course.
Yeah, sure.
And what I want to pick your brains, of course, is the digital aspect in the SME sector, more specifically in the
Yeah.
tourism sector. So, if we were to deep dive, um, I'll really like to ask you, how does the current situation mean for the India domestic tourism?
Sure.
What, how do you go from here?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. That's a good question, Ashish. Actually, so broadly, for anyone who's been associated with the tourism space in India, will know that there is a large tourism space that's the domestic tourism, and then there's the outbound tourism, right? People who travel internationally every year.
Right.
Now, the way we look at it, and when having spoken to our community and our travelers, and touching upon what Karthik also started off, there is a positive aspect, that's the news of the vaccine, right? But that also brings with it a whole lot of uncertainty, right? With this new announcement of the vaccine, different countries are now going to be implementing rules which may be very unique to their situation, right? So people, there could be some countries or there could be some airlines which insist that you have a vaccination taken, or they expect you to show a proof of that vaccination before you travel, etc., right? So we expect that despite this positive news of the vaccine, international travel will still take some time to bounce, primarily because of the uncertainty in consumers' minds, right? The word uncertainty is very important. Now, some people may think Thailand is open. Some people may think it's still closed, right? Some people may think Qantas wants a digital passport. Some people may think they don't want it. So there's a lot of uncertainty, right? But and that's going to be the situation around international travel, uncertainty, right? What that means is that as travel now begins to bounce back, because it's been about 8-10 months of lockdown, and Karthik rightly mentioned that a lot of industries are now beginning to get comfortable with the protocols that are required to take care of the consumers, right? And we are in touch with hotels. They sanitize their restaurants. Most of the hotels have stopped buffet, where people come and take from the same vessels. It's all a la carte, etc. So they've gone down to the actual granular operational stuff, right? So as
Right.
international travel gets impacted because of uncertainty, and people still want to travel, it's been 8-10 months of lockdown. Plus, companies are now very comfortable with the operational protocols of safety and hygiene. We expect the beneficiary to be the domestic tourism, right? But there are some caveats, right? It's not going to be consistent. We are not going to say that what Hampi had 12 months back is going to get it now,
Right.
right? Or what Khajuraho had is going to get it now. Is primarily going to be your weekend getaways around the big metros, right? So Delhi, Nainital, Manali, and all the region, and Bangalore, Coorg, Chikmagalur, and that region, etc. So these are the ones which are really going to bounce back. In fact, you call up any resort today for the New Year weekend, from the Christmas to the New Year weekend, they're 100% booked already, similar to last year, and actually at much more expensive prices, right? So domestic tourism is going to be the beneficiary. The travelers who wanted to travel abroad, who couldn't travel abroad, would want to have a really luxurious experience now. They were saving, waiting for it, they were saving for it. So domestic tourism is going to benefit, but unfortunately, it's not going to be consistent, right? So that's the message, that the weekend getaways will be the biggest beneficiary. A brand like Goa is going to be a huge beneficiary, but the interior destinations, right, will still take some time to get back. But the trajectory is positive. The moment the Indian government announces a certain protocol around vaccination, we expect that even a lot of that, say, a hindrance in people's minds to travel to the interiors or the lesser known brand names, to also reduce, right? So that's my message, that if you're in the domestic tourism, be positive, drive trust among people. You're going to benefit for the next 12 months. People are going to they're not going to be traveling abroad. They're going to spend their money on you, right? So watch out and try to make as much of money as you can from these high spending travelers.
Right. Right. I'm imagining a PNL to be looking like my angiogram, up and down. Right. So
Yes.
that's what I'm imagining. That it's not going to
It
be
is.
a,
It is.
a
It is. Yeah.
constant line.
Yeah.
That's for the year 2002, 2021.
Correct.
I see sustaining. But the analogy about cash being king, and obviously people try and maintain their costs, sustain their costs, and sustain themselves to revive. But realistically speaking, what do you see in terms of investments, especially, and I don't mean big ticket investments. I mean investments in the SME space, smaller space, not particularly startups, but people who already been there. How do you see this overall situation then?
See, the way I would look at it now, Ashish, is, for me, the word investment today is bringing to mind about what the industry can put in, right? And I'm not so. Let's just break this whole space into three major holders, right? The stakeholders. There's consumers, us, who want to travel. Then there's the industry, the hospitality industry or the travel industry, the one that provides that service. And actually, one of the biggest stakeholders is government, right? Now, the investments could come from government, but let's just keep that aside because we don't want to talk about um, the big ticket investments. But within the industry itself, there is the service provided by the OTAs, and then there's a service provided by the actual travelers, the actual end service providers, right? I actually see, and this is again based on our discussion with many property owners um, across the country, but I've been personally speaking to quite a few people in the south. We are actually seeing investments happening in the homestay sector, right? So that's where we are seeing that these people actually, for them, invest. These are actually the second businesses, right? So they own a large property, it's a coffee estate, or they have some other business. But what they have realized is benefit when travel starts. In fact, it's already happening in the last 1 month, 2 months. Consciously, travelers are avoiding to stay in large properties where there are 100, 200 people in the same hotel. They want social distancing naturally as a part of the property. So where I am seeing investments happening is on the homestay sector, which is the alternate accommodation sector.
Right.
What will happen as a extension of that is there will be parts of your existing providers, let's say like Make My Trip or Booking, which will suddenly try to spin off extra investments on the homestay sector, right? That
Right.
whole space needs to be standardized,
Hmm.
like a hotel booking has been done, right?
Right.
Photos, reviews, inventory, real time inventory, pricing, and the whole pricing around weekends and weekdays, etc. So the investments are going to happen on the homestay sector because it doesn't require big ticket infrastructure. And a corollary of that is that the online players, the ones which actually focus on booking the big brand hotels, are now going to put dedicated effort in building products and digital products for the homestay sector. So that's where I see the actual investment happening in the next 1 year.
Right. Right. My own thoughts are that in the distribution chain, be it on technology platforms, apps, or on online distribution, whichever way, on the smaller and medium platforms, um, prior to COVID, obviously the rule of the game was exit. How soon can you exit
Yes.
from that business? Is it a 3 year? Is it a 4 year window? I certainly see that window going up. I don't see a window less than 5 years. So if anybody is going to put, assuming even a lakh of rupees today, you have to really forget about that lakh of rupees for quite some time.
Yes.
If you think you can get reasonable return on it, it's not that your venture is poor, but that the scaling ain't going to happen for the next 2, 3 years to be able to get that to
Fair
be
point.
more. Is that fair? Yeah.
It's very fair. It's very fair. I agree. People who are going to put in the money right now will need to be patient.
Hmm.
But that patience will definitely be backed by confidence. Travel is something that's been there for millennia. It's going to be something that's going to come back in a new avatar, and these 1 or 2 years are going to be the people will find the next few decades of how travel will look. So just be patient. Don't look for immediate exits.
Hmm.
Right? It's going to bounce back. I mean, Airbnb, I know, started about 10, 12 years back, but just the way that IPO came in and has really wowed everyone should give you the confidence that if you're patient in this game, the upside is of 1000x magnitude.
Right. So lots been talked about the word digital, and to me, I think digital word itself needs to be demystified because everybody translates it in their own manner to their understanding. Uh, but you tell me on the digital investments, on revival, and what, what do you see? What should
Fair enough.
people be doing? The medium and smaller size companies.
Sure. I think in today's world, when you think of the word digital, it has to be associated with one word, that's mobile, right? When you think digital, just think mobile. And I think it's going to bring a lot of clarity in your mind, right? Because travel as a sector is unique in a certain way. Close to 80% of the research for anyone planning a travel, about 80% of the people who are planning a travel begin their research on the mobile medium, on the digital medium, right? It could be about how do I get to that place. It could be, I mean, trains, it could be IRCTC, it could be airlines, right? It could be about if I want to stay in a hotel, is there availability or what is the ratings of the place? So just think of the word mobile because 80% of the people use their mobile to begin their digital journey, right? If you think of it that way, I think it's going to make things extremely clear. And there are two aspects of that SME needs to keep in mind. One is social,
Hmm.
because that's usually the way a digital, at least for a leisure holiday, the way the digital journey begins. And actually, the next most important point that I want to I want to highlight to people is, 5 years back, 10 years back, we used to work with a huge number of small players in the travel sector. We used to tell, have a website presence, build a website, have 3 or 4 pages, a contact us page banao, apna phone number dalo, email ID dalo. Somehow people should reach and talk to you. Know if you're there somewhere not listed on Make My Trip, how do they know you're there, right? But that was 5, 10 years back. Today, like I said, the word digital has to be associated with mobile. That means two things: social and WhatsApp.
Right.
Just get very savvy with WhatsApp for business, and it's going to make things super simple for you.
Right.
In fact, the biggest threat to a lot of, and again, travel was one of the only industries which had a third party review business valued at billions of dollars like TripAdvisor, right? There is no other business where consumers want a third party play for validating how good a place is, right? It's the only place, right? And the biggest threat to that has been WhatsApp, because instead of going on TripAdvisor today, I can quickly check on my group of friends. Hey, you went there
Yeah.
for a holiday. Which place do you
Yeah.
recommend?
Yeah.
Why do I need to go to TripAdvisor, right? So WhatsApp has changed the way people are planning their holiday. You get instant feedback from your family and friends. Just mirror that same journey for your business on WhatsApp, right? Just get savvy with WhatsApp for business on your site or anywhere. Let them just be able to contact you on WhatsApp. Hey, do you have availability? Can you share some photos? And just get going with that, right? So digital from an SME point of view should mean social, should mean WhatsApp. Ideally, it should just mean mobile, right? Don't
Yeah.
think web, don't think website, just think social. And so have a Facebook presence, have an Instagram presence, and have a WhatsApp presence. I think that should make things significantly simple for people to understand what it means, because at the end of the day, it just has to mean that you're serving your consumer is on mobile, and travel, 80% of the journey begins on mobile, right? So I just wanted to keep it simple, right?
Hmm.
Obviously there are nuances. How do you maintain a good page, and how do you maintain good quality photos and product and personalization and chatbot and AIs? But all of that can be done by all the big companies. They have the strength, they have the tech strength, they have the people to do that. But if you're an SME, you could be a small startup, you could be a service provider. Just think mobile. Mobile means social and WhatsApp for you. I think that should get you going very strong in your digital journey now.
Yeah. I quite like that. See, unless you are an existing travel supplier and you are known, uh, and I don't necessarily
Yeah.
mean Make My Trip. And if you didn't have a mobile application or an app before that, but you think in the COVID time you need to have it for your customers, you're okay, because your customers know that. So if it was Kumar Travel, he will download Kumar Travel's app because he knows
Yeah.
he's dealing with Kumar Travel. But my issue is what I always tell these youngsters and startups who want to come into the industry, not a bad idea they do, that it's important for you to actually collaborate with an existing player. Because I tell them, they come out and say, sir, hum app banayenge. I said, tell me one thing, who will download your app?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, my phone has a limited size. If I go to Play Store, even for home delivery, I don't know which one to download,
Yes.
right? So
Absolutely.
what will make you think that I should be downloading you,
Correct.
So that to me is biggest issue. And I think somewhere that universe of apps in the travel circuit also be integrated together as to
Yeah.
one master app. Um,
Correct.
in many ways, like what China has done with WeChat and so on. I think that's where we'll probably be heading,
Yes.
because
Absolutely.
I can't expect 100 apps to be at the back of my mind. I've forgotten the last one I've seen, you know. But that's you put it secondly on that. But what creative solutions come to your mind for revival during these things? I mean, you're a
Yeah.
creative guy, but what
Yeah.
thoughts?
See, when Karthik started off, right, during that introduction part, he mentioned something very important. That as Holiday IQ, as Last Minute, we have been fortunate to work with many tourism boards, right?
Mm.
And we have traveled the length and breadth of this country. We have been to the northern parts of Sikkim. We have been to interiors of Meghalaya, traveled to Bhubaneswar, etc. Uh, so one of the things that we learned is, and obviously everybody knows it. I just don't want it to be redundant, but I'm highlighting it for a specific purpose, right? There are reasons for people to travel, right? One is the destination in itself, right? So you want to enjoy Sikkim, you want to enjoy Meghalaya, you want to enjoy Goa, right? The other is that there are certain unique aspects that these destinations provide that you want to bring back as memories. There are very compelling reasons to travel. So if anybody who wants to go to Kashmir almost always wants to come back with a Pashmina shawl, a Banarsi sari, a Kanchipuram sari, right? A Darjeeling tea, right? So there are these very unique aspects of multiple places in the country, handicrafts, consumables, which are deeply associated with tourism, right? Now, so far, the entire mindset of a tourism board has been come to my destination, come to my state, and that is what indicates travel and tourism for them, right? Come here and purchase the Darjeeling tea, right? Come here and purchase the Kanjivaram silk, right? But today, I think, given the unique situation we are in, right, I think you just have to be a little creative. That if a large number of people cannot travel, at least there is another important reason that used to bring them, and that was the unique part of, the unique consumable, the unique handicraft of your region. Why can't that reach their home, right? So why can't I sit and enjoy something, let's say an Agra Petha, from the source while I'm here? So the way a tourism board thinks about tourism today needs to change. Souvenir shopping is a big part of the travel tourism trade. It drives billions of dollars worth of business, right? So it's again an extension of your digital thought. You just think digital. You just think how a user wants, or how a user plans, or how a user lives. How do my users live every day, right? If you get a little creative in that, all you need to do is partner with some of your leading brands. Say, if I can partner with Make My Trip, and if I can partner with somebody like an Amazon, right? So if there is a great Indian festival that happens on every quarterly basis, why can't I have a great Indian tourism festival happening twice a year, right?
Right, right.
Where Amazon and the multiple states or the Ministry of Tourism participate, and all the small sellers of each of these states gets listed on those 2 3 days, and people from across the country are enticed to come enjoy Kashmir, buy Pashmina shawls, right? Come enjoy Northeast, buy our unique handicrafts, our unique prints from here, buy my tea, or buy any other consumable. Just be a little bit more thought, expand your thought and be a little creative on that front. That's something we have started telling a lot of tourism boards, that there is an aspect of marketing and awareness. Hey, come, I have this great beach, I have this great temple. But all said and done, a large number of people are not going to come there. That doesn't mean you still have to lose revenue. That doesn't mean people have to run out of employment. All the people who depended on the tourists. Sit with all these players. Each one of them is struggling themselves. A lot of the OTAs are struggling themselves. They'll be more than happy to sit and partner with you. They have the database of all the users who love to travel. They know who's searching for what. They know the spending pattern of each of them. Just collaborate and come up with something creative where people can log in and buy. Just make that marketing beyond just travel to also purchasing the unique aspect. So I think if they can move away from just the act of travel, not being the only part of the tourism, but the act of purchase of those unique products can do humongous benefit to the economy of those regions, keep people employed, and get people. So, and I'll give you a very good example, and many people would have heard. We are all enjoying our coffee. There's a beautiful valley near Vizag called Arakku Valley, right? I doubt many people beyond a few states here in the south would have heard of it. It's beautiful. It produces some of the best coffee in the country, right? And at least the Andhra Pradesh Tourism Board or the ministry there has done a decent job of creating a good branding around Arakku coffee for people who travel there. Packaging is good, it looks neat, it's all done in a very nice manner. But how does somebody sitting in Delhi know that there's a wonderful coffee
Yeah,
called Arakku coffee?
yeah.
Why can't you just sit and enjoy the beautiful coffee from the valleys of Arakku, right? You don't know. And that can be easily as good as imagining I'm sitting in Vizag in the valleys there and doing this. So I think the creativity should come around identifying these hotspots, the product hotspots, bring your digital partners in, collaborate and make these tourism festivals, let people log in and buy, right? Why do they only have to buy mobile phones or, their fashion online? Why can't they just buy these unique tourism products online? Think around that, and I think it can make a big difference. The NRIs in US, etc., will be more than happy to get something unique from their country there. Amazon ships to across the world. Walmart says it wants to export from India. So you just have to expand your thought beyond travel to the products why people travel, and I think that can do wonders.
That's a very deja vu thing for me. 89, 90s, and I lived in London for about 3-4 years, and I was operating tours out of the UK into India, and
Okay.
typical holiday brochure catalog. And I did a promotion with Tetley tea those
Okay.
days. It wasn't owned by Tata's, and on
Ah,
the pack, it was Darjeeling tea, and I said, if you can flavor the Darjeeling tea, you can travel to Darjeeling. So it was
yeah,
actually promoting, and believe
absolutely.
me, a lot of these Britishers got interested in traveling to Darjeeling too. It's just like the Champagne district. It's just like
Absolutely.
any other.
Absolutely.
No. The second thing I will take you on the deja vu is in 2010, I did a project for a company known as Usha Brekko, which
Mm.
runs aerial railways up onto Mansa Devi, Chanda Devi on
Okay.
all these
Okay.
religious sites. It's a Usha Martin company. And I said, and we set it up, but perhaps technology wasn't so evolved in 2010 as it's today. I said, let's offer the base. We have Bhog Laga Prasad. So if you can't get to
Ah,
Tirupati, you can actually
correct.
have the authentic Prasad of Tirupati delivered
Correct.
to your home, was.
Yeah. Yeah, so
So
that's a good point, Ashish, and I need to commend you. That's wonderful, right? That you had these thoughts, and you pointed out rightly that the thoughts have been there, the ideas have been there, like you just mentioned. Maybe at that time the technology wasn't there, and the
correct,
mindset of shopping online wasn't there. Today, both of the things have changed.
correct.
People are always browsing online, looking to buy something, right? Just take advantage of that behavior and inculcate the ideas that you just mentioned, and I think it can do wonders. And it's not going to take a big investment at all. You don't have to build an airport for that. You don't have to build a highway of 1,000 kilometers for that.
So,
Just have to think and get it implemented. That's about it.
so what's the ray of sunshine you see for hospitality in the horizon?
Yeah, I touched upon this earlier. My personal opinion is, and again, this is like the Zoom moment,
Hmm.
as they say, for the online meeting, the online collaboration space. We are talking on Zoom today. Obviously, it's become so ubiquitous today that a lot of these aha moments have become called the Zoom moment. I think going ahead, alternate accommodation is going to be the dominant flavor in accommodation. The next 2 to 3 decades is going to be just that, right? And what we mean by that is that the days of people going and staying this large 200-room hotel, I think it may continue, but the travelers are going to shift to these kind of aspects. So it's going to be homestays, farm stays, jungle stays, camping, caravan, etc. Right? It's going to be about people wanting their space, social distancing naturally built in. It's wanting to be a very sustainable way of having a tourism. It's becoming very important now. People are very conscious about sustainability and how they impact the environment when they travel, right? The way people work today is changing. The term workation has become so popular. You want to travel for 3 months somewhere and sit and work. You don't want it to be a hotel. You just want it to be a quaint little place, which is your own sort of a personal sort of a second home kind of a thing, right? The behaviors have changed, and I think the industry will catch up. It's already catching up. And what that means is the positive aspect is focus on alternate accommodation. Two reasons: a, you don't need the kind of heavy infrastructural impact on the place as such, right? And if you have seen the floods in Kerala and Coorg over the last 3 years, significant blame has been put on these big hospitality projects for deforestation, soil erosion, etc. Right? So I think if you just think of it in from the all the stakeholders' point of view, the consumer behavior is changing. The consumer is indicating to everyone that, hey, this is how I want to travel. Now it's up to the two other stakeholders to come forward, right? The government and obviously the industry, like the people who are going to provide the service. Now the government needs to come and put in the right kind of policies in place. It's there to some extent. You just need to standardize it. Every state has different homestay policies, etc. Just make it a little bit more accommodative. And then the industry needs to come in and take advantage of that. In fact, Tatas have started it under the brand AMA, etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that's not going to catch on. You're slowly going to see the Hyats and the Hiltons move into the space. which is actually going to give a big fillip to this. Right? Till date in India, homestays weren't really clear in people's mind. What do I expect? Right? What am I really going to get? But it's going to change. But the biggest beneficiaries of this will be the smaller owners, and that is what we are very interested in, right? As long as the smaller players benefit from this space, that's going to be the most positive takeaway for the economy, for travel, for consumers, etc. And because these guys are, not very digitally savvy, there will be a lot of get them up to speed. But we see that alternate accommodation in the next 2 to 3 decades is going to define how people will stay. The government needs to move in quick with policies. The larger players need to come in and establish a certain standardization, but the mass is going to be the smaller players. They need to be educated to be a little bit more digitally savvy. That just means mobile, right? Be active on social, be active on your WhatsApp, and you can take a lot of benefit, right? So that's the ray of hope. That's the ray of sunshine. And you mentioned very clearly, be patient. Just be patient. Hold on. 2021 cash may not come in, but don't lose hope. We are very, very confident after having spoken to a lot of people, and with the vaccine already getting in. 2022 onwards, travel is going to be all about sustainability and alternate accommodation.
Right. When you talk about alternate accommodation, let me tell you, it's been a learning for me also in the COVID times, because I always imagine any room to be found was either on a OYO platform or a GoIBO platform or on a Airbnb platform. But I have discovered in my own way that there is these 5 rooms and 10 room kind of
Correct.
properties in Raigad and Chikmagalur, which are not on any platform.
Correct.
And there are huge number of such properties,
Yes,
which are
there
still
are.
untapped
Correct.
on electronic platform. And that learning, let me tell you, came in. I'll mention the name here from somebody who's been on Coffee, Aditi Balbir, who is
Okay.
the CEO for V Resorts,
Ah,
and they are running into a 5 room to a 15 room rural. So I always imagine rural statement, they'll put you in some Barabanki village to stay, but it's not the fact.
absolutely not.
In India for domestic tourism is very fragmented and very poor.
Correct. Yes.
You don't have enough state transport and buses. Okay, you have Red Bus doing something, but you don't have the bus into it. You don't have entire car movability into it. You don't have the train. 23 million,
Yeah.
seats. There are only 10% of them which are automated. So somewhere over the next 2-3 years, we'll all have to work together in a cohesive to get the supply pipeline
Absolutely.
integrated end to end.
Absolutely. No,
So
I
like
totally agree with you. Yeah.
yeah, that's when really the domestic tourism.
Yeah.
Domestic tourism is not just catching a flight and getting into Kerala.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I agree. In that part, while you mentioned the whole, travel experience as such, Ashish, is extremely important. But we know we'll get into a larger discussion about infrastructure investment, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
years long, decades long kind of a thing. Here's a thought, right? So WhatsApp has launched a product called WhatsApp Payments, right? So you get into WhatsApp and now you can transfer money to your friends.
Mhm.
Why don't we partner? Why doesn't obviously I'm saying someone, it could be the government, it could be whoever, right?
Mm.
Just partner with WhatsApp and start WhatsApp travel, right?
Mm.
You not being able to find some property in Chakmagalur can be easily solved, because even that person who runs that 5 room stay is on WhatsApp because he talks to his family and friends on WhatsApp, right? It's a very, very intuitive platform. Just extend that, make a product called WhatsApp Travel. So in your WhatsApp, just like you have a payment, just say WhatsApp Travel and then search for a
Sure,
product, and
sure.
start chatting with that person. Hey, do you have a room available, etc. Right? Just that one part, I think, if we start off. Again, one of the things we have learned is obviously there's a much larger push required, but wherever you can make an impact, just start nudging and making those inroads, right? Slowly, everything just sort of starts falling in place. So I think just around the accommodation part, it's a little easier, so we can start making a little bit of those digital inroads. But you rightly pointed out, the whole system which is fragmented needs to be made a lot more cohesive. We just hope that at some point in time, the government realizes that the Ministry of Tourism, which is just a nodal agency with
Yeah.
no real power, because there's a Ministry of
Sure.
Aviation, there's a
Sure.
Ministry
Sure.
of Road Transport,
Right.
there's a Ministry of Environment, there's a Ministry of Forest, there's a Ministry of Culture, which all
Absolutely.
does everything else, somehow falls under one cohesive line. But till then, let's just keep making the
Rohit,
small.
that's why in my own little humble way, I've changed the nomenclature. When you talk about ecosystem of travel, they talk about eco. I
Yeah,
call it the universe of travel.
yeah,
I
that's
think
the
the
right
whole
way.
definition gets a
It
bit
is infinite. We don't know the number of people involved in that
right.
entire space. Yeah.
Right. While we were having an offline chat, you mentioned about the three levers of growth, etc., digitalization, being creative, online commerce, etc. You've elaborated already. But
Yeah.
just to conclude, um, do you have something to say to the audience as a learning? But I must add here before that, what you mentioned, WhatsApp travel and so on. My own purpose and mission now, after being 41 years in the industry and in a give mode, is how can I connect the dots and help people connect the dots?
Hmm.
Because each one of you, including you in many ways, you are so busy running your own organization that sometimes you miss the dots,
Yeah.
right? And
Important.
if I'm able to see many dots together, and especially on a protocol like this, Coffee with Ashish,
Yeah.
has given me an immense capability, because I'm talking to you, I'm understanding your mind, and
Hmm.
I've done it with 65 other people. Just imagine that. And of course, we keep doing it. So, if you come across something which you think can help move this, feel free to chat up with me, and I'll connect the dots and
Sure.
see.
Sure. Absolutely.
At the end, like I said, the universe of travel would have to be created. There's
Yes.
infinite. Until you create it, I don't think we will make a future-proof travel organizations. Another COVID, we're gone again 5 years from now. We shouldn't be doing that, actually.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
Right.
This time
So,
when we do, yeah, let's connect the dots better so we survive this better. Yeah.
correct. So, what are the three levers to conclude the digitalization in creative and so on?
Yeah. Okay. See, the way I would like to just let everyone know. I think somewhere we forget that is to keep the consumer in mind, right? What happened? We all have a very industry-specific view, right?
Hmm.
So we look at it from the industry and the industry gains point of view. But at some point in time, and I've seen that, it's we lose track of the consumer. Just keep the consumer in mind, and I think a lot of your decisions will get sorted out if you just understand how a consumer thinks, right? From a consumer's point of view, let's just assume, what do they want to know? Hey, what are the ways, what are the protocols of this airline, right? Do I need to do something before I board, right? Or how does this particular hotel sanitize its rooms? How often does it do that, right? Is the swimming pool open or closed, right? Is the bus stand functioning, like you just mentioned, are intercity buses? So I think the way I would like to connect, say, being creative, let's say with the tourism products thing, digital, let's say, when I said mobile, and all of this, it just keep the consumer in mind. Don't forget the consumer behavior ever. And as the consumer's behavior changes, be smart enough to realize how the consumer behaviors are changing. That can only happen if you're talking to your consumers, right? If you're just sitting online and doing a research on internet, that's not going to happen. So my closing comments would be, the thread is keep the consumer in mind, be in direct touch with the consumers, listen to them, don't talk, just listen, ask and then listen. And I think all of these will get sorted out very easily. At the end of the day, anything that we do is a manifestation of what the consumer wants. It could be offline retail, it could be online, it's just because the consumer wants it. So
Right.
just keep the consumer in mind. It's just a closing thought. Everything else will fall in place. Why am I talking WhatsApp? Why am I talking about the product to be sold through a online festival, etc.? I think we'll get sorted.
Yeah, I'll veto that as a conclusion, and I'll move you back to Karthik to conclude. But
Okay.
I'll veto that for the corporate travel business, right? I have played a big role in the corporate travel business as well, besides the holiday business. And today, if the corporate travel companies have evolved, it's because the customer has put the pressure on them to evolve. It's these corporates who say, I want my expense to be managed. It's the corporate who said, I want the cheapest.
Correct.
It's the corporate who said, I want 50 kind of MIS, right?
Fair enough.
It's not that I have evolved. It's Karthik comes from a stock of Deloitte Consulting, for example. Uh, Although that's much later, but I've seen corporates even in the 80s and 19 demanding from established corporate that if you can't give me this, and that's how these overseas companies came in, be it
Yeah.
American Express, Carlson Wagonly, etc. They bought the practices which were already being happening overseas,
Absolutely.
where American customers were putting a pressure on American travel agents, right?
No, absolutely. I agree with you.
So just to conclude here, I'll say it hasn't happened great in the holiday business in India still. And I agree with you that the customer is going to be demanding more and more. Consumerism is going to be spreading more and more. And if you can get yourself 2 steps ahead of him, I think you would have done more creative things than you could ever imagine to do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rohit, for
Absolutely.
being here with me and having a candid chat. Karthik,
Sure.
you have something to
Yeah, I
conclude.
think it was lovely hearing to you, Rohit, and got so many learning. I think many of us here are MSMEs and startups, so I think your tip and advice on just consider mobile and social media. That's about it. Do not fall for the jazz of high tech stuff. A lot of people now talk about AI, IoT, and whatnot, but I think that's a very uh, sort of a mobile first principle which you advocated. I think would make a lot of sense and resonate with a lot of our audience members. So thank you for sharing those tips with us. And with this, we are end of today's session. Thank you so much, Rohit, for joining us.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ashish, as always, and thanks for audience members. We'll see
Thanks.
you next Saturday again with our next guest speaker. Till then, stay safe. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ashish.
Rohit,
Bye.
be in touch. Bye.
Yeah.